Thanks for listening to the Clive Barker Podcast, the only podcast dedicated to the imagination of Clive Barker. Coming up next on episode 447, we get back to the Boom Studios Hellraiser comics with Dark Watch numbers 1 through 4. Plus, in the last half, we review Disc 1 of the new Arrow 4K Hellraiser box set, The Quartet of Torment. This episode is sponsored by Don Bertram's Celebrate Imagination. Don Bertram is a longtime friend of Clive and advocate of his art, but Don's unique and inspiring paintings are for sale, and over 50% of the proceeds go to the Arts and Medicine program at the Texas Children's Cancer Center. There's even a paver at Washington, D.C. representing Celebrate Imagination. We're thrilled that this worthy cause is sponsoring our podcast again this year, and we hope that you'll consider looking over the Etsy shop to buy one of his original paintings or books. Follow the link in the show notes or click the side banner and let's see what's new with Don Bertram today. Check out Bouquet, Brushfire, and Mother and Child 2 on his Facebook feed. And there are some paintings on his Etsy shop to check out. Mother and Child 2, it seems like that one has the same title as the other one. But yeah, Mother and Child 2, The Stargazer, The Folk Singer, The Pearl, Top of the World, and don't forget about his books, The Chimney Sweep's Tale and Celebrate Imagination. Also just out, check out The Eclipse on his Facebook page. Okay, well, welcome. This is episode 447 of the Clive Barker Podcast. Good morning or afternoon, Jose. How's it going?
Hey, Ryan. It's going well. It's been a busy week work-wise, and but, you know, I've been watching some interesting things, and I've been delving a lot into the discs of the Quartet of Torment from Arrow.
Yeah. So this time we're trying something a little bit different, and we're not only talking about the Hellraiser Boom comics, but we're also going to review Disc 1 of the Hellraiser Quartet of Torment, which, I don't know, is it going to be too much for one episode? I guess we'll find out. It depends on how talkative we are.
That's right. Right. But in regards to the comics, so today we are doing part 6 of our Boom Comics retrospective, I guess. And this time we're going to go into the Dark Watch, right? Yeah.
But before that, I just wanted to, since we didn't have an episode last week, we ended up working on some stuff for Patreon, and we'll talk about that in a bit. But I did there were some things I wanted to talk about, you know, ahead of the actual content here. The Nightbreed 2 CD Deluxe Edition came in, and it's awesome. It's got like a 24-page booklet in it. I haven't listened to it yet, but I did, you know, flip through the book, and it's an amazing production. I think everybody who, you know, it's like I posted this on our page, and some guy was like, "Oh, you still listen to CDs? You know, you should be buying this on record. That's where it's at, or that's where the cool people are, or whatever." Yeah. And I was like, "Well, wait, this isn't available on record."
Right. Yeah. And I guess they didn't know that it was a new edition.
It's weird how vinyl has become so trendy that people are talking about it like it's new. Mm-hmm. You know, it's the new fad, it's the new thing, and CDs are outdated technology.
Well, as far as I see it, and I know you've been pretty much an early adopter of new formats, and you strive to go for things that have better quality and better sound quality, better image quality. I also share that passion, but I also share nostalgia for, you know, videotapes and records. And to me, records have always been the superior way of listening to music in terms of, you know, as long as you have a good hi-fi system, it's as good. It can be as good as a CD, really. I mean.
Yeah, when I first started buying CDs, I should say, because I think they came out in the 80s, like the early 80s. But when I first started getting CDs, I noticed that there's a weird sort of digital artifact that you can kind of hear in CDs, where like an S sound, it's like, and
really,
yeah, it's hard to explain. Records are a little warmer, and being analog kind of melts everything together in a way that isn't, you know, that it isn't, you know, parsed into zeros and ones like on CDs and MP3s and stuff.
Right. Yeah. Especially MP3s, which are more compressed. But I like the surface noise on records sometimes. I just I think it was John Cale or someone like that. Now I'm paraphrasing, that said, when someone pointed out that records have surface noise, that he said, "Hey, man, life has surface noise." I think it was John Peel.
Yeah.
So I agree with that. But tell me about.
I would be okay with getting into records, except that I have so many things hooked up to so many. It takes up a lot of space.
Yeah. It can be very heavy. When I moved from the apartment in Cleveland to the house when we purchased our home here in Cleveland Heights, we had to package our collection, and we have like almost 800 vinyl records, and it's heavy when you fill a box with those records, and they take up a lot of space, a lot of shelving. But I guess the nostalgia is more like first of all, the covers are so much bigger, more beautiful to look at, right?
Well, and when cassettes came out, they just would take the record and cut the sides off, of the artwork, and that kind of sucks. I mean, I don't have. I was a cassette kid. I mostly had cassettes until I moved to CDs, and I don't miss them. I don't feel any nostalgia at all for cassettes. I think that they're clunky, they don't sound as good, and they cut the album artwork off.
And they degraded pretty quickly. They were more about the portability, right? You could just throw a tape in there in your backpack, and it didn't take a lot of space.
And being able to listen in your car. I mean, that was a huge benefit, because you can't put a record in your car.
Right.
But
right. But tell me about the soundtrack. So did you I haven't gotten it yet.
Did you order one?
No, I haven't ordered it yet, so I probably should do that.
Yeah, I don't know how limited.
I just found out about it last week that it was already available to order. So I just had a really busy week work-wise, so I didn't really order it yet.
Yeah.
But that's cool.
It's also kind of expensive for a CD, but I think it's worth it, and it's it's good to support projects like this.
Yeah, of course. It's is it Entrada that published it? Yes, that's
Entrada.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's
anyway,
soundtrack label.
Just my first initial sort of unboxing impression of it is it's really nice looking. And I can dig into it a little more as far as like the CD version. So
did you go through the booklet?
I've just flipped through it really quickly. I didn't read it all. I think that you were saying that I try to go to the newest format. I've kind of stopped at CDs. Yeah, I do listen to MP3s and stuff from my phone, but I still collect the CDs, and Jennifer gives me a hard time for hauling them around when we move, and they do the cases, the hinges break off on them when you're trying to move them, which is really
I hate that. Right? Yeah, especially if it's a special colored case or something like that. You're never going to get another one just like that,
or one of the ones that holds more than one disc. If the hinge is broken on that, it's really hard to get a replacement.
You remember the big chubby ones for double CDs?
Yeah, that's what I mean.
And then they created those jewel case that kind of opened up, and you could put 3 CDs in there.
Yeah.
They were slimmer. Those were really cool. But hard to find if you broke it. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. So anyway, I was saying we should cover it in more depth, maybe if you get a copy later on.
Right, that would be great. That way we can go through the cues and listen to them and see if we remember that from any parts of the movies and stuff. That should be very interesting. I'm looking forward to that Entrada release.
And I got some stuff that I got from Russell Charrington through Facebook. This Jericho bundle. So it's the PC version of Jericho, which is still wrapped in plastic, which is probably fine because I don't have a Windows machine, and a game booklet, which is for some reason separated out of the Windows version of the game, but it's signed, and a couple of Jericho bookmarks, which I have one that I got before, and then a size L, I think, T-shirt or XL T-shirt of for Jericho, which I might be giving that away on our Patreon.
Oh, that's nice. And I wonder if those bookmarks came with the original box of the game.
I think I'm trying to remember, because I know I have one of these, and I can't remember where I got it from. It might have been around the time that Mr. Begone came out.
Oh, right.
That they were sort of cross promoting.
I remember some silly things to promote Jericho. That like Playboy magazine had a feature with 2 characters from the game that were nude.
Yeah.
So 2 CGI characters of the game posing for Playboy.
Right.
That was kind of silly, but I remember that stuff.
And I also got the Prima official game guide for Jericho. And then not Jericho related, I got a big Japanese, magazine style promotional book about Nightbreed.
Oh, you got the Japanese press kit. Yeah, I've got that. That's pretty good. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was a neat haul from Russell. And then when we spent a bunch of time talking about this Phantasmagoria.
That's right. You got the hardcover one?
Yeah, I got the hardcover, and it comes with a ton of autographs in it. It's got Barbie Wilde, Simon Bamford, Nicholas Vince.
Nice.
Jeff Portis, and then there's some other ones I can't read. I should probably go on their website and try to see who those signatures are.
Yeah, probably Stephen Jones and maybe Peter Atkins. I don't know.
And mine is number 56 out of 60. So if somebody's out there wanting to get this, if it's not sold out already, you better hurry up.
Super rare.
Yeah. So, but I'm excited about this. I didn't realize how thick it was. I mean, I can't imagine how they fit this all in a magazine.
Yeah, like I told you, it was like 350 pages plus. And, a lot of good stuff in there. Great interviews, a lot of excellent content. The Hellfire treatment for a movie that was never made. A whole bunch of stuff. A lot of Stephen Jones tapes of interviews that were made back in the day when he was being a publicist for Hellraiser and Nightbreed. And,
this is super cool. And I've only flipped through this. I haven't started reading it yet. It just arrived yesterday. But I'm super excited about it. So, and they put on the, even though I didn't write this when I made the order, they wrote on my envelope to Ryan Danhauser and the Barker cast.
Oh, that's pretty sweet of them. Thank you very much, guys.
Yeah, thank you. That was awesome. So, I'm glad that you and I were able to get this. So I think we might want to have an episode about it, even though it's a little bit kind of teasing because by the time we do that, nobody will be able to buy it anymore.
Well, I mean, it's still available for the paperback, I think.
Yeah, well, in that case, that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the one I have.
Well, and I'm sure the content inside is the same, right? It's just that this one is a hardcover.
Yeah, and it's got the signatures. Yeah. So 60. Yeah. Wow, that's really rare. I'm kind of jealous. I'll see if I can find a copy.
Yeah. So mine's 56 out of 60, so they only have 4 left.
You got to really get into it, though, because it's basically a big book. It's like 350 pages. It's there's a lot to read. Back in the day when I was eating up like books like Imagica with 1,200 pages in like 20 days, I probably could read this whole thing in like a weekend. But now it's going to take a little while longer.
It's a little bit taller than ours. It's like maybe half an inch taller than ours.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, but it's got a cool wraparound cover like what we did. Really neat with the it's got the Scarlet Gospels image of Pinhead shooting the origami cranes on the backside. Well, I'm sure that's the same as the magazine.
Yep, it's the same. In the back, you see that was a British cover for, I think, Scarlet Gospels, or there might have been something.
Yeah, I think it was an interior. I can't remember.
Yeah, I also got a couple of things from Russell that I kind of rescued in my to add to my collection. I got a couple of Polaroids from Nightbreed from back in the day, like 1989, 1990. There were a couple of Polaroids. I got one from some characters that I don't think we ever see in the actual movie, and not even in the director's cut. One is a picture of writers Craig Spector, Peter Atkins, and John Skip. And they're dressed up in drag as the Cycle Slut Sisters. They were supposed to be 3 characters that would show up in a sequence that was filmed but never used. One of them would have a big hammer made out of foam. One would have a gun. And they would be fighting the Sons of the Free inside Midian, like on those tunnels and stairs and rope things. And one of them would run out of a hallway and take a Son of the Free with him, and the other one would just try to attack him and get shot, and they would die. You could probably find that in the Revelations website. There's an article about some behind the scenes on how they made certain scenes for Nightbreed, including stop motion animation, and they also mentioned this scene with the Cycle Slut Sisters that got cut out. And then Yeah, Peter Atkins saw the picture. I talked to him, and he said, "Oh, that's probably a continuity photo, not taken by Murray Close, because I thought it was taken by the on-set photographer Murray Close for Nightbreed." And he said that might have been a continuity Polaroid that they took. And in the back of it, it does have something written. It says hotel room. So that's probably like they were just monkeying around in the hotel room. And then there was a picture of a Nightbreed, a Polaroid that I never saw, which was a character that's got like these black and white diagonal stripes painted over his body. And he's got an extended head, like a big, tall head. And he's sitting by a fire inside Midian. And in the back, it just says Strider. So I guess that would be the name of that character. And
nice.
I'll probably share those at some point.
That's awesome.
In our blog or maybe on the Patreon as well.
Well, should we move on to Hellraiser: The Dark Watch?
Yes. Let's delve into this great adventure. It's a 12-issue arc, right?
Yeah, and you know what? My memory was totally faulty because I know that on these episodes I've been saying that The Dark Watch is 4 issues and The Road Below is 4 issues. That's not true. The 4-issue arc were the ones that were in the first 20. But yeah, The Dark Watch, like you said, is 12 issues, so it's a complete year of Hellraiser: The Dark Watch, and then the next one, The Road Below, is 6.
Correct. Yeah. But this arc really picked up story-wise. It was more entertaining for me than I would say Heaven's Reply. I think I had a better time with this story. I think that there was too much complicated stuff going on that was kept building and building because, you switch writers and people have different things that they want to do, but they still had to address the old things from the previous writers, and I think that now this is a little. I mean, it's still continuing on from the original story, but it's a little bit of a reset. It hasn't quite built up the level of complication and world-ending stuff like that. So the last we saw, Kirsty and. Are you cracking open a package? Yes. Okay. I'm opening. I'm taking it out of the Mylar bag for the issue. Right. The comic, yeah. Which cover do you have? Do you have Kirsty with a dress? Do you have Kirsty? Okay, I have the Kirsty with a dress, which is cover A. Tim Bradstreet. And then cover B was Nick Percival, and it's Kirsty laying back with her arms over her head, kind of like in the throes of this weird fleshy tentacle mass that's kind of like crawling over her. And then we've got another cover, which is both Spencer on one half and Kirsty on the other half. And they're just holding the box, and the box is just shining through with all these like rays of energy. So those are the 3 covers. And they say on the inside cover here that covers A and D are both by Tim Bradstreet, and then B is by Nick Percival, and C is by Fraser Irving. But I wonder if D is just the same thing as A, but without the titles and stuff. Could be the black and white version of A. Oh, yeah. So this Dark Watch picks up a year after the events that we last saw on issue 16, right? Yeah, so Tiffany has assembled a new team of basically harrowers, right? And, Tiffany. And now it opens up with a what do we call? We typically call them puzzle guardians, right? Right, sort of street person that's, giving out puzzle boxes to people. Yes, and he's selling a box to a guy with a scarred face. And, of course, this book opens with that awesome line, "What's your pleasure, sir?" And he buys the box, of course, and he goes to a adequately damp room with brownstone walls, and he solves the box, and the wall opens, and he finds a portal to hell. Yeah, and then, but nobody's there, and he's like, "Hey, wasn't I supposed to be greeted by Cenobites?" Right. Yeah, and it's like, this is the first person that actually knew what he was getting into and wanted to do it anyway. Yes, so he goes into the labyrinth, right, and he sees that the damned are walking the hallways, but he doesn't see any Cenobites coming out to take him in. Yeah. So he turns around, and there's the female Cenobite, and she explains that she's like, "Hey, what are you doing here? You came in here of your own free will. Who are you?" And he's like, "Oh, I'm a theologian, you know. I wanted to see the truth of it." So he's kind of like, you think, "Oh, this guy's like a Chenard or something."
Yeah.
And he says, you know, he's got liver cancer and he only has a few months to live, so he decided to end the party and come check it out.
Yeah. So, and we'll find out who this guy is in a bit, but do you think that's true about the liver cancer? I can't, or is that just a lie?
I think that might be a lie, given what we learn about him in the next few pages. I think that is a lie. Yeah. But I do like the fact that this character, and we'll get to who he is, but I did not envision him to be like this when I first read the story where he shows up for the first time. Yeah. But we'll get to that.
Yeah.
So, Sister Silesium shows him the pit, right? So we get this interesting distinction that there are two kinds of damned souls in Leviathan's hell, right? So the ones that deserve their own little special corner of hell.
Yeah.
And those that are just kind of fodder, you know, they just make their way there, you know, and they're just skinned souls that walk around in hell, and that's enough torture for them.
Yeah. She says that for some people, just being in hell is bad enough, but for others, they need to create special ones out of their mind.
Yes.
Special hells.
Pluck the juiciest sinners for special attention in the labyrinth.
Yeah. And that's interesting, right? Like that's where Frank ended up in Hellraiser 2.
So despite the fact that they say that this starts a year, I was reading the wiki about this, and it says that it starts a year after those events. There's still like damned souls in hell. They're still trying to rebel for Captain Spencer, right? Because you know, the Elliot Spencer was given powers by that wizard in the loop. I'm guessing it was Kissoon, right? Supposed to be Kissoon?
I don't think so. I mean, they don't really say who that guy was.
Yeah, but it looked like it was kind of supposed to be Kissoon as a shaman or something. Well, he gets those powers, right? Yeah. So he started that rebellion in hell because he wanted to ascend to heaven. But obviously, hell is not under any special kind of management, right? So that's why the Cenobites didn't come to greet this guy.
Yeah. It seems like the female Cenobite, you know, and you called her Sister Celeste, which is Barbie Wilde's iteration of the character, or Barbie Wilde's version. Yeah. And so she's trying to kind of just keep things moving along and trying to help when she can, but she's not really the leader exactly. She might be the only Cenobite.
I'm not sure about that, but the thing is, Spencer and Kirsty have been stuck inside that sphere of memory, caught in a loop this whole time, and they keep reliving certain moments in time, and when the man that entered hell touches one of these memory spheres that the female Cenobite is showing him, he gets to witness what's going on inside that loop. So he gets to see, you know, Kirsty and Spencer in the moment when they were transferring power from one to the other. Yeah. When Kirsty is getting the pins stuck in her head, and you know, Spencer got the pins tore off of his head. And Kirsty can see this guy. Kirsty can see him when he touches the sphere. She's like, "Who's that guy over there?"
Yeah.
And then she's like, "Wait, this is not how it happened."
Yeah. Yeah. So and Elliot Spencer says, "Who are you, little ghost?"
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and so that kind of triggers a memory or something from Kirsty to think, wait a minute, I think that what's going on here isn't real. And every time that happens, Leviathan shows up and resets him.
That's right. Yeah. But I like this moment where the Cenobite takes this guy. We'll call him Dario because it's his name, or Marchetti. Dario Marchetti. They take him up on this really tall ladder to get a perspective on the labyrinth. And we see Leviathan shining in the distance, rotating with his like black light. And then she points out that there's an army of, you know, that there is a new management in Hell, but they've been busy gathering a new army. So they call them Leviathan's Crusaders. So,
and then on the next page we see who it is, and I mean, this is interesting because it's like I didn't remember this before, that they had just kind of glossed over the part where he became the new Pinhead, right?
Yeah,
but
I'd forgotten that part too. I was like, wait, so we never got to see him being turned? So that's interesting.
Yeah,
but at the end of Heaven's Reply,
annual or something that we missed, but I don't think so.
Right. So he got turned into a Cenobite, and now he's the new Pinhead, and he comes marching on a flayed horse, a flayed skeletal horse, and he's commanding some of the hordes of the damned souls.
Of course, we're talking about Harry D'Amour.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the way they created the new Pinhead, it's kind of funny, right? I mean, they put it's supposed to be Harry D'Amour, but now he's got a Pinhead outfit, right, with a hole on his chest where his heart used to be, and the flesh is pulled back from that hole and stitched around his shoulder and his ribs and stuff. And then he's got the pins on his face, and he's got a giant lens monocle stitched around one of his eyes.
I think it's like a magnifying glass, like Sherlock Holmes would have, but it's...
Oh, because he's a detective?
Yes, I think that's the thing.
Interesting. Mm-hmm. And turns out Harry D'Amour recognizes this guy, right?
Yeah, he knows him right away. Because they were in a short story together. He's the Cankerist.
Yes.
Yeah.
Dario Marchetti.
And they were in the Lost Souls together, right?
Right, the story Lost Souls. So this guy is supposed to be an assassin. He's an assassin that works either for the Vatican or Hell or both. So he's actually the reason why he came in here was because he came with a special dagger, and he's on a job to try to assassinate the leadership of Hell.
And this is a super deep cut for Clive Barker fans, because that's a short story that wasn't part of the Books of Blood, but it's a short story that included Harry D'Amour, and and this character was part of it, and it was really old story from 1985 that you can read on websites, or you can get in collected volumes of short stories, not necessarily all Clive Barker ones.
Mm-hmm. That's right. So immediately chains are dispatched to tear him apart, because he clearly knows that Marchetti is here to try to kill D'Amour or do an attack on Hell from the Vatican. But turns out that he's protected, right? So the chains kind of bounce off of him because he's got this medallion. He manages to kill a couple of Cenobites that are trying to attack him with his magic dagger.
Yeah.
And he does the thing where he's like, "Ha! Did you think I would walk in here if I didn't have protection? I've got this talisman," and he holds it up. And this talisman will keep me immune to Hell's influence.
Yeah. And then Harry D'Amour just pulls out a handgun and shoots him.
Shoots him in the arm, and he lets go of the amulet. And that's a funny moment, because I mean, I get it that the amulet would protect you from the chains of Hell and Hell powers, but how is it that D'Amour still has his snub-nosed weapon? I mean, okay, all right, cool. So he just shot him.
Yeah.
Something I would never imagine seeing is Pinhead shooting someone with a gun, but okay, I'll take it.
And one of the mysteries that's kind of explored in this new series here is why Elliot Spencer Pinhead and his Cenobites lost their memories of being human, but it seems like Kirsty and Harry D'Amour still pretty much have the same personalities as they did before they turned. Yeah,
they get into that later in the story, I think, and they explain why. But, of course, now that Marchetti is not holding the amulet anymore, he's got shot in the arm, and, he just gets torn apart by chains, right?
Yeah, he gets his limbs get chained, and he gets lifted up in the air.
And they stick him in a Cenobite maker.
Yeah. Which I don't know if that's a good idea. I mean, I've only read these first 4 issues now, and I don't remember what happens with him. But we'll get back to it. But it seems like, it was a long time ago when we read these, but it seems like it's probably not a good idea to have a guy like that become a Cenobite, but we'll see.
So as he is transformed in a Cenobite maker, he leaves an anonymous warning. He says, you think you're in control here, D'Amour? You're a puppet and Leviathan's pulling your strings, and, think about it. Why would he choose you to rule hell?
Yeah.
And just as the Cenobite maker closes, and of course Harry D'Amour's like, I thought he'd never shut up. And he comes out, and now he's another minion to join the ranks of Hell's new army. But the female Cenobite turns to D'Amour and says, okay, there's just one thing that I don't understand now that we've added another one to this army. It's like, who is this new army supposed to be fighting? Right?
Yeah.
Because I understand that they fought Spencer. Spencer got defeated. He got trapped in a loop with Kirsty. So now who is this army for? Yeah. And I guess D'Amour has been doing this, and he hasn't really questioned his motive since he transformed into the new Pinhead. Why is creating this new army?
Yeah, which is, and that does speak a little bit to that idea that maybe he is, starting to lose a little bit of who he is. I mean, the old Harry D'Amour would have definitely asked, why am I doing this?
But like you said, there's the story changes to the new Harrowers, right, led by Tiffany.
Yeah, and so they're trying to get this box, and then one of the Hell Guardian people, runs over and grabs it.
Yeah, I think that they come upon a Puzzle Guardian grabbing like something from a room. I think this is the same room that the Cankerist.
I think so too. Yeah, I think that's
so. This is the same room where the Cankerist summoned the portal to hell. And here comes the Puzzle Guardian, ready to pick it up, just like we see at the end of Hellraiser.
Yeah.
And they don't know who it is, right? They think it's just a regular person.
Yeah, and then he turns into one of those skeletal dragons.
Heck yeah.
Yeah, and that's the end of issue 1. It's like the cliffhanger is like, oh, how are we going to deal with this thing?
Yeah, that last full page splash of the skeletal dragon like facing Tiffany holding the glowing box. It's like Tiffany is just like, shit.
And we find out later that those things have a name. They're called eremites.
That's right. That's great. That's an excellent piece of world building there, because I don't think when they showed up in the Marvel comics, I don't think they called them anything else other than Puzzle Guardians. Right,
yeah. And then, of course, it was just a big tease in the first Hellraiser movie of like, wait, what is that? And it's just supposed to be, it's up to your imagination, like some kind of thing from hell. Just like the engineer, right? He doesn't explain what the engineer is. It's just like, that's what I love about Hellraiser. It's just like, it's more questions than answers.
That's true. They did show the engineer doing some stuff in the annual, right? Written by Ben Mears.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. And then so now we're on to issue 2 of the Dark Watch. And I should say issue 1 was written by Clive Barker and Brandon Seifert, and art by Tom Garcia. So Brandon Seifert is going to be, it seems like throughout this whole Dark Watch, it might all be Brandon Seifert, but we'll find out. And just some trivia about Brandon Seifert. He's from Fairbanks, Alaska.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I've got a bunch of mutual friends with him just because he, is from here.
Local boy.
Yeah.
But he doesn't live there anymore, I guess, huh?
No, I don't think so. I think he's in California or something now.
So issue number 2 had some had some 3 covers as usual. One Nick Percival, I think it's the one with the female Cenobite, and then we see a picture, half face of Spencer, I believe. Then we have the second cover, which is covered by Sammy McConan. I think that's the one that has Elliot and Kirsty back to back, trapped inside the loop. And then there's a C cover, which is by Conspiracy Digital Arts, which is a Digital art. So we got a Kirsty wearing a white dress with a satin sash, and it's a profile pic. It's really pretty, actually. I love the way that.
I have the cover A with the female Cenobite and that guy's face. Like
Me too.
Big.
Yep, I got that one by Nick Percival.
I wonder if that's supposed to be the. No, that wouldn't be the Cankerous, because by this time he's already like strung up and everything. So I don't know.
And he has those scars on his face.
Yeah, but I don't know who that's supposed to be. It doesn't really look like anybody. I don't know. Well,
the second issue opens with a flashback from Tiffany.
Yeah, flashback of the time, before Hellraiser 2 when she was put, because this was all flashback, and even in that movie, right?
She was a patient of Dr. Chenard.
Yeah, and really, I think her mom was really the patient, and she was just kind of left there because they killed her mom.
Yeah, but she definitely had something done to her as well, because she was pretty much nonverbal in the events of Hellbound. But she goes through a little bit of the backstory of who Dr. Chenard was, what he did to his mom, the events of Hellbound, and how Kirsty saved her. Yeah, and this is like the life flashing in front of her eyes, right? Because last cliffhanger, she was about to be eaten by a giant skeletal dragon.
Yeah, the Eremite with the horns coming out of its eye sockets.
Yeah.
So it's so there's a quick flash of this Eremite coming towards her, and then she's thinking back again, right? Then we've got another flashback.
Yeah, it's like showing us what the Harrowers have been doing, how they tackle the issue of getting boxes out of circulation. And at first they were destroying them, but that was actually what Spencer wanted them to do, because every time they broke apart a box, that would just crack open the walls between our reality and hell a little more. So now what they're doing is just they're storing them away.
In a medicine cabinet. It's not even like a safe or anything.
Yeah. Well, it might be a wall safe. Doesn't it look like a wall safe?
No.
An open wall safe.
That looks like it. To me, that looks like a medicine cabinet. There is a wall safe.
Yeah, Tiffany is just putting her hand, closing the door on the panel underneath. But I think the other Harrowers kind of question why Tiffany can be so bloodthirsty in her pursuit of these boxes, right?
Yeah.
Because when they come across a guy like Chenard, that has a bunch of occult books and boxes and clippings of things that are supernatural. She just shot the guy in cold blood, and everybody else is freaking out. But her justification is like, look around. This guy was a collector of hell. If we let him go, he's probably just going to go back to it and do something nasty.
Well, and she, and from her point of view, I mean, look, this guy is another Chenard, and she's not going to put up with that.
That's exactly what the other guy is accusing her of, is saying, you killed him because he reminded you of somebody else. But it's a trauma that Tiffany has.
Yeah.
Yep. And so they're working with someone now connected to the government, right? Or a secret agent, Andrew Norton.
Yeah, but he's like left the government and he's joined them.
Yeah, he says, well, you guys can kill whoever you want, but I have a problem with sloppy killings. So he was one of the guys that was attached to the Heaven's Reply program.
Yeah.
And then he resigned, and he ended up joining the Harrowers.
And Heaven's Reply program was really just dropping a bomb, I think, right?
I guess. Yeah. It's not even a supernatural bomb.
Yeah. Yeah. But anyway, so, back to her flashback, and she's... on the heels of executing this, occult collector guy, then she's thinking about, hey, we need to contact Harry D'Amour.
Right, because he's been missing since last year. She doesn't know that he's been taken by hell. But the reason why they got to this situation where they're being attacked by a skeletal Eremite is because, Brandon Seifert does have a way of putting flashbacks inside of flashbacks that I wish that they would
Stephen King.
I wish sometimes that they would edit the story in a different way. Like if they opened up with a flashback of how they got a phone call from Norma in the Bronx, the psychic lady, Norma Payne, that's in the Scarlet Gospels. And she's telling them, look, someone's about to open a puzzle box in the Bronx, uptown, so you got to go there. It may be too late. And that's what brought them to that situation where they went to the scene where the cankerist opened the door to hell. And now she's in the situation where she's trapped with a skeletal dragon on one side of the door and a room with no windows.
Yeah. Yeah, and so she calls these new harrowers Harry's Angels.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's funny.
Yeah.
That is funny. But one of them is an Indian guy called Rajiv. His wife was taken by hell, I think, and he's one of the guys who gets killed by the skeletal dragon.
Yeah, so now we're back in the present, right? And this thing is confronting them, and it swipes him with its claw and just completely eviscerates him. All of his guts are like laying next to him on the floor.
Right. Because they didn't have time to put on a glyph of the gift of the Solutant. Because when they were taking boxes and destroying them originally, they would put the box inside a glyph, and then they would open the box, and the Cenobite would appear, and they would destroy the box, and that would destroy the box and the Cenobite, I think.
Yeah, and so now this time, but what they didn't realize is that that Elliot Spencer had deliberately recalled all the Eremites back to hell, and to make it easier for Tiffany to destroy the puzzle boxes.
Right, good point. And so now that they're trying to do that again, they didn't even do a glyph of the Solutant because they weren't going to open the box. They were just going to put it away. But still, they came just as this derelict guy, this puzzle guardian, was collecting the box. And he just turns into the skeletal dragon, and he just tears through the harrowers, right?
Yeah.
Kills Rajiv, and then the other people run away. Tiffany is running inside that weird house that looks almost like an abandoned house or like a warehouse or something. And she takes a wrong turn and she goes into a closet. And that takes her to where we are now, which is a giant skeletal dragon, trying to chomp at her, but not able to get through all the way through the doorway.
Yeah. And so then she kind of remembers, like, oh, yeah, what does Kirsty do in a situation like this? You just kind of half open the box and then close it again, and that sends them back to hell.
I think what she did was she wanted to open a door, so the only door she could open would be to open the box and run into hell.
Yeah.
So that's what happens.
She opens the door, and then she closes it again on this Eremite, and it sort of decapitates it.
Yeah, but now Tiffany is trapped inside hell.
Yeah. Yep. And she sees Harry D'Amour, and it's like, oh,
slow clapping.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, good job.
Yeah.
I knew you were a badass, but I wouldn't have laid money on you beating an Eremite.
Yeah.
And somehow she recognizes him almost immediately, even though he's completely disfigured with pins and all that stuff. Yeah. But it's like, so this is what happened. If you're the Pinhead now, what happened to Kirsty and Elliot Spencer?
Yeah. And of course, when she's thinking, she's putting it together and she's imagining what he looked like, as a human. It doesn't look like Harry D'Amour, from the Lord of
like
Illusions.
Scott Bakula.
It doesn't look like Scott Bakula. And the problem we've talked about in previous issues of this comic is that Harry D'Amour looks different from every artist.
That's true. Yeah, it's kind of hard for them to keep a consistent look, but well, the only way to really, I admire that they really try to make Spencer look like Doug Bradley. So that was a good positive one. And this one, I'm okay with Harry D'Amour not looking like Scott Bakula.
But it would be better if they just had one consistent look and just kept to that all the time, and something just distinctive, so it's easy to recognize him.
But like you brought up earlier, so Harry D'Amour, even though he's changed, he still has memories and talks to Tiffany like a friend. And he's like, hey, I just need someone on the other side to help me out, be my deputy. And she's like, wait. And he offers her a box. And she's like, wait, are you asking me to become a Cenobite? He's like, no. There's just, you can be on Earth but have access to my files and old contacts. And then this could be your way of calling me and, we could communicate. But she's like, I think she's like a little skeptical about that, right?
Yeah,
she's like,
she's not sure she can trust him because he's a Cenobite.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. But so she kind of takes the box, but she's still like, damn you, D'Amour, for giving in to hell. So the Harrower's new base of operations is Harry D'Amour's office in the Bronx, right?
Yeah, and I have to admit, it is a little, for Harry D'Amour being such a beloved character, it's a little sad to see him, disfigured in this way.
Yeah, I never, maybe that's why they did it off camera, off comic.
Yeah.
So we wouldn't have to go through something that we might have seen before. It was a little tricky for them to do that.
Of course, something really bad happens to him in the Scarlet Gospels too. So
that's true.
Yeah.
So next time it cuts to Kirsty, right? Because Tiffany's like, I wish Kirsty were here. Where are you? And she's stuck in the loop. So she's waking up in a dream, and she's waking up in bed, and all of a sudden Elliot Spencer walks in with breakfast, and he approaches the bed and he's like, oh, happy anniversary, sweetheart. I love you. And it's a picture of them in the bedside table of them married. So they're inhabiting one of the memories from Elliot Spencer.
Yeah, and so she's obviously not Kirsty in this memory. She's his old wife from that weird kind of messed up relationship that they had.
Oh, yeah. That really crazy.
Yeah.
Very open. Yeah, it was weird, right?
Yeah. So that was the end of, that was the cliffhanger for episode 2 of The Dark Watch. I'm gonna put
and then there's episode 3. Again, they did the thing with all the multiple covers.
Yeah.
One is, I think, by Nick Percival. It's the cover that has like a photo album of these pictures of reproductions of Elliot Spencer in the war.
Yeah.
With Kirsty. Elliot Spencer in a garden by a tree with Kirsty.
Yep.
Elliot Spencer doing an American Gothic thing where instead of holding a pitchfork, he's holding a Hellraiser box with Pinhead Kirsty. So that's a cool cover. I like the fact that they have all that stuff in there, all those different pictures.
Yeah, I have cover A and cover B on this one. So, cover A is the one with the photos, and one of them is that American Gothic one. And then cover B is kind of a more blurry looking sort of a painting with, I guess that's Tiffany?
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah.
It's two figures in hell surrounded by the landscape of hell and damned souls on the ridges of peaks.
Yeah.
And that's from Sammy Makonnen. And then there's cover C, which again is a digital painting. And it's got a wonderful rendition of the female Cenobite holding like a sphere of power or something. Like, I guess, the sphere of memory that Kirsty and Spencer are stuck in.
That wasn't as much of a cliffhanger that she's stuck in Elliot Spencer's memory.
Right.
But now she's reliving the time when the creature thing gave him those powers, to be immortal. That thing from that Fangoria cover, that sculpture that Clive Barker did.
Yep. And except instead of that shaman, we have Kirsty wearing kind of shaman gear, and she's, I think in the comic did the shaman give him like a worm to eat or something like that?
Yeah,
he gave him something to eat,
and it sort of rotted him from the inside out, and it's like you have to let go of your. It was kind of this feeling that you have to let go of your mortal life to become immortal.
Yeah. So this is when he's stuck in that time loop, and he gets the powers that allow him to rip open the portal and try to take over Earth. But then, just as that is happening, there's Leviathan dressed as a milkman.
Yeah,
shows up and clicks next. It's like he's got a finger on a Blu-ray skip button, right? He's like skip.
Yeah. Yep, and then of course now they're back into the scene again where they're transferring the power from Elliot Spencer to Kirsty.
Yeah. And we see that Kirsty sees Dario Marchetti when he touches Sphere, and we're going back to that scene where she's like, oh, there's someone there. And it's like, this is not how it happened.
Yeah.
And I think they hold on that instead of going back to outside the sphere. They stay in the sphere.
And
this is...
And every time they start to figure out that they're in a memory and this isn't real, then Leviathan shows up and goes next and resets them.
Yeah, as soon as they become self-aware, that's when they skip to another one. And okay, we go back to the anniversary memory. So Spencer is kissing Kirsty, giving her breakfast in bed, and then she kind of comes to and says, "Get off of me! You know what the hell is this? We were in Leviathan's chamber, and a ghost appeared, and now Leviathan popped out of nowhere, and Leviathan shows up and says next."
Yeah. Yep, and then now we're at the moment in the old in the previous comics here where Elliot Spencer as Pinhead makes a deal with this Leviathan, right, because he wants to be able to get to heaven.
Yes. And so they keep skipping, and at some point we're just seeing them like understanding that they're stuck in a loop. Yeah. We go back to the events of Hellraiser, where Kirsty's on the top of the stairs and Frank comes out of the damp room, and then the Frank turns into Spencer, and he starts talking to her about they both have trauma. They both that he didn't take her innocence. It was Uncle Frank that took her innocence. Yeah, and he gets her so upset that she kind of turns into the female. The female version of Pinhead, Kirsty with the red sash, and they're going to fight. Yeah, she doesn't realize that this is exactly what Leviathan wants, because Spencer is still holding that power that we saw in Heaven's Reply. So he quickly overpowers Kirsty and rips off a piece of the banister in the Ludovico Street house, and he stabs her on the side, And this is when she realizes, hey, we're not skipping again. Maybe this is what Leviathan wants. He wants us to actually, hurt each other. So she's running away from him, and she understands that Leviathan actually wants this to happen. He wants them to fight each other.
Yeah, and that was a little bit of a flashback. I mean, it was a flashback to the events of Hellraiser 1, obviously, but it was also a little bit of a flashback to the Hellraiser Annual, where Elliot Spencer confronted Frank and was trying to recruit him, and then Frank sort of turned on him, and then he killed him. Spencer killed Frank.
So she's telling Spencer, Kirsty's telling Spencer, look, every time we get self-aware that we're trapped, Leviathan shows up and resets the scene. So why is he not doing this now, right? Yeah. And why they're giving Leviathan what he wants by fighting is because that way they're not working together to escape the loop. If they put their powers together, maybe they could escape this. And this is what Kirsty is coming to that realization, and she's trying to convince Spencer. Yeah. But he's still not 100% sure. But then he's like, okay, let's do a truce. And let's go ahead and see if we can break through out of this. And they try. And all of a sudden, everything around them kind of fractures and resets. Yeah. And they discover they're still inside the sphere. So now they can see, I guess they realize that even their power combined was not enough to break through. Yeah. And in the meantime, we see that Damour is following what's going on inside the sphere as well. Yep.
And that's the end of that issue.
Yeah, this one didn't really advance the story that much, but it showed us a little bit that there is plans within plans that Leviathan is doing. And it all has to do with trying to figure out what is all this preparation, what is all this army preparation that Damour is doing according to Leviathan's wishes. So should we go into issue 4?
Yeah. So then issue 4... and you were commenting on what a cool cover this was, back when we were talking about this episode earlier. And this is the one that I have too, is cover A, that's got Harry Damour on his flayed horse.
Ah, it's so good.
Holding a bunch of chains.
Yeah. Instead of reins, the horse has chains running through his body. So
with hooks, yeah.
With hooks. And then the other cover, that's a cover by
Ibrahim Roberson?
That's right. Roberson, yep. He does cover A and C, which is the black and white ashcan version of the cover A. And then cover B is by Lorena Carvalho, and that is Tiffany, right? Tiffany sitting at Harry D'Amour's desk. Yeah, holding the box and the gun, pointing it towards the person who was looking at the pointing at us with the gun.
Yeah.
So this one is also written by Clive Barker and Brendan Seifert. And the art, they introduced a new person in this one. Like you said, they were going to be a different artist. Tom Garcia does pages 1 through 19. And then Korkut Oztekin did pages 20 through 22. Yeah. I guess that just helped finish the issue.
Yeah. Yeah, and it is a pretty different art style on 20 through 22. But, okay, so it opens up with Harry D'Amour leading the damned on his horse, and he's probably starting to wonder what he's doing this for. Right.
He's hung up on the thing that Marchetti told him, like, hey, Leviathan's manipulating you like a puppet. Who are you building this army for? What are you going to do? They go through a little bit of the backstory between him and Dario Marchetti and the events of Lost Souls. They have a little panel here showing Marchetti after he killed a baby with a lady that was on New Year's Eve.
And there's Chachette, the only picture we ever could find of him, right?
That's right. Yeah. He used it on Duels of Blood.
Yeah.
He does show up in a couple of panels in this issue, I think. So they're just, for some reason, they're recalling the events of the first issue of the Dark Watch again. But yeah, so he wants to know who is this new army for and why is he there? You know,
I think that flashback is to show that he had a knife that could kill Cenobites.
Right, or demons at least. Yeah. We see another picture here on one of these pages of Chat. We see a picture of Chat. Do you see that picture where Chat is taking off the fat lady costume? And he's got a head full of eyes.
Yes, right, yeah.
Yep. And there's another picture of the demon from Wyckoff Street. Yeah. So he's going back about, how he's questioning his duties and how he needs Tiffany to help him get to the bottom of this. And he wonders, have I been created and put in here to become a jailer for Kirsty and Pinhead? Or is there a bigger game, right? So there is a bigger game. And he decides to do something pretty radical, right, D'Amour? He goes out to the Crusaders and he like you were talking about this earlier, like, I don't know that this was a good idea to turn Marchetti into a Cenobite. He goes to question the new made Cenobites, right? He says, tell me about your life as a human. And he's like, I have always served Leviathan, high priest. I must attend to my duties. And he's like, that's not true. Tell me about your life before you were Cenobite. Because he wants to question Marchetti about why he was sent. But then Marchetti's like, I have always been a Cenobite. Please, priest, I must proceed to my new posting. Yeah. And he's like, shut up and think about it. And he goes like, he starts to twitch and stuff. And like the female Cenobite comes over and said, no, can I you can go back to your job. Can I talk to you, my liege? Yeah. And she's like, that wouldn't be wise to prod, a Cenobite, try to get him to remember being human. Because that's what happened to me. And that's what happened to Spencer when Kirsty made us remember who we were. And
then they all died.
Yeah, something bad happened.
There's no explanation as far as in any comics anywhere about how they all came back, except for Pinhead. Right? In Hellraiser 3, we get an explanation of how Pinhead came back, but there's no explanation for the other three and like how they came back.
I mean, they didn't really come back in movies. The Chatterer, there were different versions of the Chatterer.
They came back in the 90s comics and in these comics.
Oh, yeah. I mean, because they're not really rooted to a place in time in the chronology of the story, right? So you can just say, oh, this happened before Hellraiser, or,
No, I mean, these events are all happening after Hellraiser 2, after they were killed.
Oh, yeah. Huh. She doesn't really go into that.
Yeah. But
right.
Here she is talking about how Kirsty made her remember, but she's not talking about how she got killed right after that, and doesn't explain how she came back again.
That's interesting. She doesn't really explain. That's a good point. I guess it's just because hell is forever, so even if you die, maybe you just get brought back and retransformed or something.
Yeah, I'm sure they could easily come up with something, but it just, as far as I know, has never been done.
Yeah. So he understands that he probably shouldn't prod Marchetti, try to break his conditioning, and he decides to follow him at a distance instead, right? So he just... Yeah. He sees that Marchetti's Cenobite, I'll call him that. I don't know what you'd like. The Cankerist. Let's call him the Cankerist. The Cankerist Cenobite is walking out in the plains of hell, and Demore follows him. And it's funny because Pinhead had chains. Kirsty had white fabric straps. Demore has barbed wire that comes up out of nowhere. So they all have different powers, right?
And this Marchetti's got like a mechanical snake wrapped around him or something.
Yeah, it's like he's like these tentacles, almost like mechanical tentacles made out of metal.
Yeah.
So it's funny because Demore follows Marchetti or the Cankerous Cenobite to this other fortification, like a wall or something with a gate, and he's like, I don't know what this is. And he's like, what is the meaning of this? And there's a guard there that says, oh, this is forbidden. But it's like, but I'm the high priest.
To you, yeah.
Yeah. So turn back. And they start fighting. And the guard tries to hit him with his hellish halberd. And there's a big shield that comes up around Demore.
Because he's got Marchetti's little sigil that he uses.
Talisman thing, yeah. So he walks into the fortress and he comes across a giant Cenobite monster, right, made out of body parts and multiple heads, multiple bodies.
It's got three heads and it's got like 10 legs.
Yeah, it's got more than three heads.
Human legs, and it's got a whole bunch of spinal columns running out down the outside of its back.
Yeah, and it's got a hand that instead of an arm that instead of a hand has a giant metal sword. Another one with a big pike and axe and chains, and it's a huge monster. But
and Harry says, "That's new."
Yeah, the battle with this giant thing doesn't seem to go very well. Even though he manages to attack the monster with the magic rune knife that slices up the monster. But this monster is too strong, right? He kind of breaks through the shield and starts pummeling him until the female Cenobite shows up.
Yeah.
And she tries to summon some chains to get this giant monster trapped. Her and Demore join forces, and it's still not enough. So they have to run away.
Yeah. But then Demore gets the idea of like, well, wait a minute, I know what to do, and he starts trying to talk to it and get it to remember its past as a human, or as I guess several humans.
And that causes this giant monstrosity to remember. At least some of the heads start remembering who they were, and I guess it's the horror of what they become that overwhelms him.
Yeah. Yeah, which is he rips his own head off the center.
Yeah. Some of his limbs rip themselves off. Some parts are separated because they don't want to be together, and he just tears himself apart with this weird horror of what he's become. They go back out from the fortress, and they go back into the hellish labyrinth. I don't know why they didn't proceed, though, right? They could have proceeded now that they've defeated the monster.
I thought they did. She says, your quick thinking has cleared the way. Don't let the spectacle distract you from the real prize.
Yeah, but then it looks like they just go back and see the dead guards, and they go back into the labyrinth, look at Leviathan.
Yeah, that's true.
I guess they were trying to escape with their lives. So I guess they realized that probably if there was this monster guarding the door, there might be more and they don't have enough power to break into this fortress, I would say.
Yeah.
That's probably why they retreat. But he has to consider what is going on here. Why are parts of hell forbidden to him? And what is Leviathan plotting? So he's going to consider this in solitude.
Yeah.
And we've changed the artist for this page.
Yeah. Now we've got that new artist, which is the image of Pinhead is a little freakier looking. Of the Demore Pinhead. Yeah,
this artist is a little different from Tom Garcia. It's his work has thicker lines, more stylized, less detailed. But strangely, I'm a fan of this kind of like warped depiction of Pinhead.
Yeah, and, it's a little funhouse mirror looking.
So he realizes that I think what happened is, you're right. They did see what the greater prize was inside that fortress. The greater prize for this was the giant hole that was torn between hell and earth, right?
Yeah, so I think what's going on is this is another like a flashback sort of a thing where they could have just shown it in sequence, would have made it easier to understand.
I know. This page could have literally just gone back a page earlier and we would have understood this a little better. So when they go into, after they destroy the monster, and they see that the hole that Spencer ripped thanks to the destruction of the boxes is still there, and Leviathan's making him gather an army because probably they want to invade Earth again.
Yeah.
So it's kind of weird that Leviathan did not share this vision with Harry Demore.
Yeah. Yeah, so Harry's kind of a dupe, but he's got to know that at some point he'd figure it out.
Yep. So that's another kind of cliffhanger. The hole is still there, and Demore is supposed to lead an army of Cenobites to invade the Earth.
Yeah.
And of course, we know that he's not going to do that, but let's see what happens.
So that's issues 1 through 4, and this goes all the way to 12 for the Dark Watch. So this there's plenty more to come, and it's been a long time, so I don't remember at all, the plot of what happens with all of this. So I'm excited to see what happens.
I read a couple more issues, but I went up to 6, but I didn't read the final 6. So I'm also a little ahead of you, but I'm not going to spoil it.
Okay. Well, we'll get there here sometime relatively soon.
Yeah.
But
What better thing to patch onto this than talk a little bit about the first Hellraiser disc from the Quartet of Torment box?
Yeah. So one thing I wanted to hold off talking about was the big hardcover book that comes with it, only because I haven't read it yet. And so, have you read the whole thing?
Not the whole thing. I'm still going through it as well. I've read some of the. I would say, probably the first half of the book.
Yeah. We'll talk about it on another one. Maybe when we cover one of the discs that doesn't have as many special features, like maybe 3. Just for the one for Hellraiser 3 may not have as much.
Right.
Yeah.
But this came out in 2023, and it was a pretty amazing set. There were 2 kinds of sets. There were 2 covers for the set, right? One of them was supposed to be with the Pinhead on the outer box and a flayed man on the inner packaging.
Yeah.
Which is the one I think both of us have.
Yep, and then there's the Chatterer version.
And the Chatterer version, which was a little more limited, I guess.
Yeah, I thought I had ordered the Chatterer version, but I guess I didn't. I just assumed, or maybe I just didn't pay close enough attention. But I really like this Pinhead one, so I'm okay with it. Yeah,
it's a die-cut outer shell where little patches of Pinhead skin are cut through so you can see the skin man underneath.
Yeah, and then there's even another layer, right? When you take off the plastic sleeve from the then it's a skull.
It's the most complex packaging I've ever seen, in at least books, booklets or boxes that I've bought. This one is one of the most complex one, and graphically stunning.
Yeah, and it's interesting because it kind of cuts to the heart of something that Clive Barker said in interviews about. He really, the image of a flayed person kind of really freaks him out, you know. So when he made Hellraiser, he was kind of confronting that fear.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
But once you take that book and the packaging outside of the major box, then you have this kind of digipack thing that unfolds twice to reveal 4 records. And in the inner part, it says, "We have such sights to show you," in splashed blood.
Yeah.
And then the back of that says, "I am in hell, help me." And there's a bloody box next to a puddle of blood in a white background.
And then, of course, the skull that we talked about. Today we're going to talk about Disc 1. And I guess just right off the bat, the first thing, you know, my first impression of, you know, watching Hellraiser on here is that I really couldn't tell the difference between Hellraiser in 4K and Hellraiser in high def, like, you know, we had on the Scarlet box.
Yes.
I mean, and there are other times when I can really see the difference, but in this case, not really. And it maybe has to do with the film stock, you know, and that, you know, with and that maybe the HD version captures the film stock grain, you know, pretty close to the same as the 4K one, or maybe it's just me. I don't know, but if anybody out there thinks I'm crazy and like, oh yeah, I could totally see it, you know, let us know. But for me, I couldn't really tell the difference.
This was the first time I saw Hellraiser in 4K, and I was pretty impressed by it. I was pretty impressed by the grain of the film.
Yeah.
All the extras are amazing. I mean, this first disc has a new commentary track.
So if somebody did like a Pepsi challenge with you and had the HD version and the 4K one side by side playing, you know, the Scarlet box and the Quartet of Torment, would you be able to tell the difference?
I don't know. I mean, it depends on what kind of screen I'm looking at. If it's a 4K,
yeah,
I have now a 4K monitor.
They would both be on 4K screens. Yeah.
Sure. I don't know. I probably wouldn't be able to tell much of a difference.
Yeah.
It depends on the screen that you're looking at, I think, the size of the screen. But I just think it looks amazing. And
yeah,
they have brand new 4K restorations of all 4 films from the original camera negatives by Arrow Films.
Yeah.
So this is probably as good as it's ever going to get.
Yeah, I would think so. And, you know, so we talked about Hellraiser in 4K, and then there was a new commentary with Stephen Jones and Kim Newman. I put a typo on here. Yeah, and so that I listened to. I watched the whole thing and listened to, and a lot of it was Stephen Jones talking about being on set when they were creating Hellraiser.
Right, because he was a unit publicist.
Yeah, and he talked. There's a lot of behind the scenes stuff with him talking about it, and that was really cool.
I love it.
Definitely worth watching it in that way. I did not watch the old commentaries because I've seen them before.
Right.
There's one with Clive Barker, Ashley Lawrence, and Pete Atkins, and there's another one with just Clive Barker. And I didn't watch those because I've seen him, but I watched this new one with Stephen Jones and Kim Newman.
Excellent commentary. I always like knowing more from Stephen Jones because he's been the right man at the right place for a lot of the Hellraiser movies and Nightbreed, and he's worked on a lot of anthologies where Clive Barker was also included. And he's just a great guy. He's just a big figure in the fantasy literature, British fantasy literature, convention culture, and British fantasy society for a long time.
And
so
he talked about how he came to become the publicist for Hellraiser, which was the first time that he had been a publicist for a movie. It had never even occurred to him to do that, but they asked him to.
Nice.
Yeah, it was pretty neat. And so then I guess the next thing, the Power of Imagination with Sorka Neeline and Carmel Kniprath. And so we interviewed them and we talked to them about making this, which was really neat. And it's a really cool feature, and it's really about Clive Barker in general, and not, you know, it's about Hellraiser, but it's also about the wider topic of Clive Barker, which is, if you're listening to this podcast, you know, I think that's for you. You should definitely check that out.
Yeah, you should go listen to our episode 441. That's 441. It was 6 episodes ago.
Yeah.
And it's a great segment because it's two academics. You know, Carmel is working on her PhD thesis about Clive Barker, and of course Sorka, big figure after her book Clive Barker Imaginer, full of essays, and she's a teacher. And they go into it not just from a different perspective of being academics, but also from being women, and they go into the, you know, how they got into Clive Barker and the stuff that they like best and all of that. And they analyze a little bit of the movies and the books. So a fascinating piece, and you guys should go listen to our episode 441.
Yeah, or you can even watch the video version of it on YouTube, because it was a Zoom call. So we did we put the actual video footage of that up. So if you want to check it out on our YouTube channel too, that's also a good place to check it out.
Speaking of YouTube, the next feature is Unboxing Hellraiser, a brand new visual essay celebrating the lament configuration by genre author Alexandra Benedict, who also did The Beauty of Murder. What did you think of this one? Did you see this one?
I did, but I saw it a long time ago. I think we were, I think I watched this back when we interviewed Sorka and stuff.
Oh, so, yeah.
I'm trying to remember what this one was.
It's a deep dive into the box, right? And how many boxes we've had, and the different boxes that have shown up in the movie.
Yeah.
And the new Hulu Hellraiser boxes that have different 5 configurations.
Yeah.
I mean, wow, I've never seen such a deep dive into the lament configuration.
So that'd be a good thing for people to watch, like Max, you know, could watch that.
Yeah. I think a couple of pictures of Pyramid Gallery configuration boxes show up in that segment.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't heard from Max in a while. I'd love to work with him again and talk more about his puzzle boxes if he's still doing them.
Yeah, so this is like, at first I thought, I don't know how long this is going to be, but this ended up being pretty long, right? Isn't this like almost over 20 minutes? And,
and so it's like tough. It's tough to you need some time to get through all of these things, you know.
There's a lot of stuff.
Yeah, and then
apart from Unboxing Hellraiser, there was The Pursuit of Possibilities, right?
Yeah, and I'm trying to remember which one is that one.
This one is a brand new 60-minute discussion between acclaimed horror authors Paula D. Ashe and Eric LaRocca, celebrating the queerness of Hellraiser and the importance of Clive Barker as a queer writer. So it's almost like a Zoom call between two people.
Yes.
And it gives us a lot of insight on how two gay people get introduced and how they see Clive Barker's work. And that gives us a completely interesting perspective on that. What I took out of this was that the insight of queerness and Clive Barker as a queer author by people who are not cis straight people like us. You know, we totally in some ways we get different experiences from things that Clive wrote that other people might get a completely different cultural experience from it.
I remember there was one time when my wife had these friends in her, you know, in graduate school that always liked to go out dancing at gay clubs because they all had like boyfriends or husbands or whatever, and so they didn't want people hitting on them, but they wanted to go out dancing. Mm-hmm. And so there was one time when I went with them to one of those, just to see what it was like, and this was just a plain door, like on the side of an office building or something, and then you go downstairs, and all of a sudden you're in a completely different place, and it popped in my head immediately, like, oh, this is Midian.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
It's a different space. It's inhabited by a different culture, a different presence.
Yeah, there was no signage, nothing. I mean, it was just a door, you know, with no indication at all. You had to know ahead of time where to go.
You go in through the door of anonymity.
Yeah,
because you don't want to face the scrutiny of society.
Well, yeah, and that was in the 90s. I'm sure that it hopefully would be more acceptable now.
Oh, yeah. I've been to bars like that. There used to be a place called the Valley Bar in Phoenix. Mm-hmm. The way you got into that bar was you had to go in between two office buildings, and then you walk past the back of those buildings with the dumpsters of trash, And then there's a door with a red light that there's a guy in front of it, and you go in, and like you said, it's almost like you go down a flight of stairs, and you're in this basement where there's like all sorts of things going on, bars and a concert going on and whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's like you're going in between the legs of a city into the deep world of it, except you're just going in between an alley between two buildings.
Yeah, really strange and interesting.
Yeah. I went in there to see a Lydia Lunch concert. So that was interesting. That was fun.
Cool. And then Flesh
Pursuit
is a
of
Trap.
Possibilities. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Flesh is a Trap. That was really cool. I really enjoyed this one.
That was a little uncomfortable, if I'm remembering right. This is another one I watched like a couple of months ago, so I'm trying to remember. But this is the one about
the tattoo,
body modification, right?
Yeah, this is the one that starts with this guy Adams. He's getting a tattoo of that drawing Clive Barker did with the two men with cities growing out of their heads, and they're having a war with little projectiles going in between and smoke.
Yeah.
He's getting that tattooed on his body, and I know there's some blood that shows up, and I know that you don't like to see blood, but I thought it was such a poetic way that he describes the whole thing, and I really appreciated the detail of going into the body mod culture and how that it impressed Clive. The Piercing Fans Quarterly, PFIQ magazine, and how body modification, defines Cenobites and all of that. Yeah. So
some of that stuff is a little uncomfortable for me to see, like the people that have the huge holes in them, and I don't know.
Gauges and there's one. The guy Adams mentions the. No, that's not. No, wait, I'm mixing it up now. Sorry. This is about the guy talking about his experience of how he got into Clive Barker and gets the tattoo. He doesn't really go into the PFIQ magazines. That's a different segment. But yeah,
right.
I like the way that Guy Adams talked about his experience. It was very interesting. It was very sophisticated segment, and I appreciated the tattoo close-ups and just the way that they made it. It was someone putting Clive Barker's work on display on their body forever.
Yeah, I think the one you're thinking of is the Stephen Thrower.
That's exactly
with
right.
Coil, right? We'll get to that one. So it says newly uncovered interviews, which I think that's like Being Frank with Sean Chapman, and Under the Skin with Doug Bradley, and Soundtrack to Hell with Stephen Thrower.
Yeah. And there's more stuff in here. There's like image galleries. There's the original 1987 electronic press kit.
Yeah. Which is all kind of thrown in with the image galleries, right? I mean, it's just a bunch of images that you scan through with your remote while you're watching, and part of that is the electronic press kit.
Were you already familiar with the Sean Chapman interview?
It seemed familiar. So maybe, Was this on another disc?
I think it might have already been on another disc like the Scarlet Box, but I actually just saw it for the first time when I was watching things last night.
Yeah.
And I thought it was really interesting to see Sean Chapman talk about the backstory for Frank, some of the ideas, and how it was like playing him on set. And I didn't really imagine Frank would have had any sort of special forces background, but apparently that was in Sean Chapman's mind. When he mentions that Sean Chapman is in the market buying the box, and he says, we wanted him to look like he had some special forces experience, so he's got these green army pants on and a knife. And I was like, oh yeah, I never thought about that.
Yeah, I never did either. This was
I always thought he was more like an underground kind of guy that would just do odd jobs and jump from city to city and kind of hustle.
Yeah. There's something that we've talked about in the past before, is that how many different people there are playing Frank in Hellraiser, right? And so there's four people. It's a combination of four people's performances to make this character. So Sean Chapman talks about how he kind of opens it up and sets the stage for Frank, and then other people kind of carry the torch after that, which is an interesting way to look at it.
Yeah. Wait a minute. 4 people? Because I'm counting Sean Chapman. I'm counting Andrew Robinson. Yep. I'm counting Oliver Smith.
And then the voice actor.
Oh,
the American,
wasn't that Oliver Smith's voice?
The American voice actor who does the American accent over Sean Chapman's voice.
I thought that was Oliver Smith's voice. Huh.
Is
well, you're right. You know what? You're right. You might be right.
I don't
Right.
know.
You might be right. Yeah, I might be right. But I think for the second movie, they use the actual actors' voices for Hellbound because he does mention that. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
which nobody had any problem with. I think they were overly sensitive, in Hellraiser 1 about making it not, ambiguous about whether it was in England or not, and I don't know. That all was not necessary.
But yeah, I was very happy to hear more. I didn't even realize that Sean Chapman was in Underworld. He does appear in a scene.
Yeah, you know what?
Mother Skill's Club, I think.
Yeah, he walks up to the to Mother Skill and like whispers something to him really quick.
Yeah. I think he was trying to sell him an act for his club, and then Mother Skill says, "You know what I'm going to do for you? I'm going to tell you where the exit door is."
yeah, and he's wearing sunglasses, and it's really hard. It is kind of hard to tell that it's him.
Yeah.
So that was cool to find out that he was in Underworld, and he mentioned in the interview, and people told me that Clive Barker was involved in that movie. So it's kind of like it was just a coincidence that he happened to be in that.
I think he says he never even saw the movie, at least after making it. So, yeah, and there's a whole bunch of other stuff, like you said, has been in other releases for quite some time, I think. Under the Skin, that might have been back when Anchor Bay put out the Hellraiser box with the first 3 movies that this stuff was made. It was made by Seraphin. And then there's that soundtrack Hell.
Interview with Stephen Thrower from Coil, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and he talks a lot about the subject matter of Coil and the way they sound, and that Clive Barker, saw them and was how they met, and how Clive Barker kind of championed them for being in the movie.
Was it a comic store in London, right?
Yeah, that was pretty neat.
Forbidden Planet or Forbidden World.
It seemed like Stephen Thrower was working there.
Yeah, he is just a young man working there.
Yeah,
and also had joined Coil, I think. And so that's how they met. And he said, "Hey, I make music. I'll play you something." And he played him some tracks that he had, and Clive really liked it. And it looks like they were almost set to be the soundtrack for the Hellraiser movie all the way up until before they had to do reshoots to put more special effects and stuff. That's when New World said, "Well, listen, we'll give you more money for you to make the film a little better, but we want to make some changes of our own."
Yeah, they wanted the movie to be more accessible. It's I wish that we could have both, right? I wish we could see what the movie would have been like with the Coil soundtrack, because what they made was just samples to say this is what it will be like. They never actually scored the movie. And so
right, they created demos, and they didn't have access to a cut of the movie, so they were done kind of in an abstract way.
Yeah, and so if they'd actually scored the movie, it would have been different from even the Hellraiser stuff that they've put out on CD and stuff. And so it would be nice to see that version of the movie. I mean, I don't necessarily think I'd want to give up the one that we have, because I think that that's also really good. I love the soundtrack for Hellraiser.
Oh, one of the things I loved about this segment with Stephen Thrower was that you actually see bits of the movie that someone scored over with the Coil soundtrack. Yeah. So it gives you an idea of what if someone. I don't know if there's enough music to score the whole movie, or if someone can rip the 5.1 track, maybe they could try muting the Christopher Young soundtrack and try to mix in the Coil soundtrack. I don't know if that would work. But it's nice when they do that in the segment, and they show us Frank opening the box, and then there's a little box theme from Coil playing, and there's the credits rolling at the beginning with Clive Barker's name showing up, and they have the Hellraiser theme playing over that. So that really gives you an idea, but I have to be honest, I'm very torn about Coil or Christopher Young, because Christopher Young, it definitely made the movie so much better. And then the magnificent black mass of Hellbound just explodes into this amazing soundtrack. It's just such a great idea.
Yeah, because the soundtrack for the first one is a little more intimate and personal, and then the one on Hellbound is more like apocalyptic. Yeah. So it just ratcheted it up a couple of notches.
Now I do have to say something. We used to have a collaborator, and we almost did an interview with Stephen Thrower at one point as well. I'm glad that Arrow ended up making this segment because this was almost – it's funny. It's almost an unplanned but never made Clive Barker podcast episode where we were working at the time with
Ian.
Yes, thank you. And his original idea when he participated in our Kickstarter was to have us do an episode where we would talk about the Coil soundtrack and possibly bring in Stephen Thrower. But as it turns out, hey, look, here's the definitive stuff that Arrow put up about Coil and the Hellraiser soundtrack.
Yeah, and this was great. And I don't remember ever seeing this interview before. So I think that's a great.
It's new, I think.
Yeah, they call it an archival interview, so they must have dug it up from somewhere. But I don't think it was ever published anywhere.
Yeah, I never saw it before, so that was a fascinating take on how Coil got involved with Hellraiser and how they ended up not doing it. Do you know? One thing that always kind of struck me as odd is that the names of the tracks that they made, right? So there's the Hellraiser theme, there's the Box theme, there's the Love theme, and then there's Attack of the Cenopods.
Yeah.
And I'm like, was that an early name for the Cenobites? Or
I don't know.
Did someone misunderstand the word Cenobite?
I was wondering that too.
Because, one of those tracks for the unused themes of Hellraiser was Attack of the Cenopods, spelled Sennapods. And I'm like, what's the Cenopods?
Yeah.
Do you mean the Cenobites?
Maybe he just heard it really quick, at the comic shop or whatever, and
I don't know.
Misheard it or something.
I don't know. I'm sure there's some intention behind that, but whatever reference that's supposed to be or whatever idea they had for naming it that, I wish I knew, because what are Cenopods? I don't know what that is.
Yeah. I caught that too. I thought that was kind of cool though. And so I guess there's also a draft screenplays, 2 of them, but I didn't read those. I have the one that comes with the Laserdisc box set.
Yeah, me too.
And I have another draft screenplay that I bought at Golden Age Collectibles in Seattle. So I didn't read these ones on the on the 4K set, that you have to flip through with your remote. I like reading them on paper, I guess, better.
Oh yeah, of course.
Yeah,
much more convenient.
Yeah, but that kind of gets us through disc 1. It's amazing how much extra stuff we're going to be going through by the time we get through this whole set. And so if this worked out time-wise, it seems maybe we went a little long, but maybe we can keep doing this as we cover the Hellraiser Boom comics.
All right.
Yeah, I thought it was a good idea that you had.
Thank you.
Yeah. And it saves us from making a special episode for each one because time is kind of limited. We got so many things to cover.
Well, as usual, we'd like to give a big shout out to our Patreon members.
Yeah. So thank you, David Anderson, Eric Vanderholt, Daniel Elvin, and our returning sponsor, Don Bertram. He's kind of working with us outside of the Patreon system because their rules are so strict. So we waited to 3 months until we could get, allow annual billing, because they said you have to have been in existence for 3 months. So we waited for that, and then I see there's another thing where you have to make $200 a month to be able to do that. So we're not anywhere near that.
We're Patreon babies.
Yeah. So Don Bertram just sent us our sponsorship outside of the Patreon system, but I told him, get a free membership and we'll still, make sure that he has access to everything that everybody has because he's on the advertiser tier, unofficially.
We love our Patreon supporters.
Yeah.
We actually started making some Patreon posts and more to come.
Yeah. So let's talk about those really quick. So you made a Patreon post of a short story that you wrote way back in 2006 for your old blog, and you had an old blog and an old podcast about Hellraiser before we made this one.
Oh boy, yeah, that's coming up soon on Patreon. The story of my first I wouldn't call it a podcast. It wasn't a podcast. It was this weird thing that I just decided to do. I had a blog on Blogger. It was called Hellraiser Gallery. I kept it for like over a year, maybe a couple of years. I don't know. I don't remember. But it was back in like the mid-2000s, I think. I covered the release of Mr. Begone on there. I've made some posts about I remember Clive Barker's Zoom In was one of the first posts I did on that blog. So, yeah, I decided to try my hand at making a little website that would have Clive Barker news and also share Clive Barker collection items. So, and one of the things I decided was like, how about, it was the boom of internet, Web 2.0, right? Where it's not just static pages anymore. Now people can fill up the internet with content. We can write stuff and put videos and put audio on it. Yeah. So I went to this old platform called Odeo, O-D-E-O, spelled that way. And I started uploading some stuff, and then I would put that on my blog as well. So I think I did some audio, but they were short. I mean, this was like just a matter of minutes for each episode.
Well, there is a podcast section in Patreon, so we could put those audio if you can get them back. We could put those. Oh
my God! No, they were garbage.
In there. Oh,
they're garbage. Well, I don't know that I even have that, but
if
to give you an idea,
let us know if you want to hear those on Patreon.
I don't even know if I have them anymore. Okay. I'll see if I have them. If I have them, I'll put them on just to prove that they were garbage. And I did not have a podcast, even though I called it a Hellraiser Gallery podcast. But yeah, I have 3 subscribers on that platform. It was a huge failure.
This wasn't my first podcast either. My first one was with puppets. And it was a video podcast, which those did not take off. Video podcasts don't really work. I mean, the podcast hosts don't want you putting that big of a file on on an episode. They're built so that you have a limit for the file size per month or whatever. And so doing video podcasts would just crush us.
Do you remember when YouTube would limit the size of your video to 15 minutes or less?
Yeah.
People would have to post things in parts in their channels.
I was operating under that constraint when I did those.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good times.
Yeah. Yeah. So
now you can put a 4-hour video on YouTube. It doesn't matter. They'll take anything.
Yeah, and we do, right? With our
Jericho Squad.
Jericho Squad. Yeah, we put 4-hour, which those things are hogging up huge amounts of hard drive space on my computer. So I'm up to I think 19 terabytes.
I think you could probably archive some of those older episodes. I mean, unless you're thinking about remastering them and re-editing them, I think you could probably just store smaller versions of the videos.
Yeah, maybe.
Maybe compress them to like MP4 X264 codec with X265.
Even the old podcast episodes, because I save the GarageBand files, so they're the uncompressed, all the uncompressed audio that I could re-edit any episode that we've ever done. Because I saved all of the project files for everything.
So anyway, one of my Patreon posts was a little short story that I called Patterns of the Dreaming God. And it was about a guy. I think I used the character from an H.P. Lovecraft story.
Oh.
I think I used that. Joseph Kerwin. He was at Miskatonic University, and he's checking up a book, a tome of dark lore called Patterns of the Sleeping God, of the Dreaming God. And I'm doing a terrible job of synopsis here, but basically he finds a schematic for a weird machine that would put him in touch with some creatures. And he creates a machine, the machine comes to life, and then a Cenobite appears. And I'll leave the rest for you guys to read up on our Patreon.
Well, and Eric Vanderholt commented. He said, "Thanks for sharing this. Really liked it." So obviously,
cool.
we only have right now. We only have 3 or 4 people that can watch these things. So we need more people on here to share this stuff with. So,
yeah, maybe we'll have to do Patreon posts and post them also in the blog so people will see the kind of stuff that we're posting there. Maybe that would call more people to join our Patreon.
They are on the blog, but when you go on the blog and click on it, it says you have to log in with your Patreon to be able to watch it.
Ah, gotcha.
Yeah. So, and then the other thing that we put up a long time ago, I did a Collector's Corner article on the Jump Tribe. And so now I made a video version of that to watch. Use the old blog as a narration, and I added in some stuff, updates and things. But yeah, and I made it into a video to watch. So I think so that was fun to do. I'd like to do more of those, and I've been thinking about like what can I do for what kind of videos could I make, and having these old Collector's Corner articles gives us a jumping off point, right? Some narration to work with.
That's right.
So yeah, that's on there too. I posted that about 6 days ago as we're recording this. And you can only see that if you're in one of the paid tiers, like the $5 or the $10 version. And same with your story.
That's right. I think I remember the first time you brought up Jump Tribe was maybe one of those rare stories that we did episode.
Yeah.
Maybe episode 29, I think.
Yeah. Because we talked about the stories in the Jump Tribe books.
Yeah.
Yeah, there are 4 of those. So if you want to join our Patreon and be able to get access to this stuff, because there's going to be more coming, it's patreon.com/BarkerCast589.
Coming up next, we're going to be doing more Boom Comics and Hellraiser Quartet of Torment coverage. We're going to be doing any news episodes about any stuff that comes out, right?
Yep. Jericho Squad, we've actually scheduled a date to meet up and do the next episode.
And it works for everybody, which is great.
Yeah. Hopefully we don't have last-minute cancellations.
Are we going to, do you suppose we'll have any last-minute Seagull appearances?
I can't imagine. No. I don't think so.
All right.
I don't even work.
I miss that guy.
I don't even work with Brandt anymore. He transferred out of our department, and now he's working for code enforcement.
Oh, cool. Okay. Well, good. As long as he's happy.
He's got a job where he has to wear a bulletproof vest.
Oh no!
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my God! People are crazy.
So imagine that you have like a junkyard on your property or a meth lab. And somebody's got to go over there and tell them that if they don't clean it up, they're going to get a fine.
Code enforcement.
Yeah.
Wow. Stay safe, Brent.
Yeah. So anyway, also A to Z commentaries, Z for Zombies will continue with Evil Dead 2, Dead by Dawn.
Oh, yeah. I was talking to Ed about that on the phone, and he wants to know when we're going to set a date for that. So let's throw some dates after we're done recording.
Okay. Yeah,
Awesome.
I don't know. I was I really wanted to get a date for, because we just did a commentary, so I really wanted to get a date for the Jericho. So that was kind of the next thing I was focused on.
Yeah. That's fine. Yeah. I was watching stuff about Evil Dead. I was watching a video the other day. Yeah, I'm looking forward to Evil Dead 2. That should be fun.
That will be fun. And I also I have them all on 4K now, Evil Dead 1 through 3. And so I haven't watched Army of Darkness on 4K yet, because now that we're doing this, I'm saving it, until...
Oh, that's got to be great. Yeah. It's got to look great.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll see all the wires and stuff.
Yeah, probably.
You can see a skeleton do like Three Stooges things at Ash
or
with the fingers.
The outlines around the matte paintings and stuff.
Oh yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Anyway, so a lot of good stuff is on the way, and we got to read that Phantasmagoria from cover to cover, and we're going to be watching a lot of interesting stuff. At the end of watching all the stuff from the Quartet of Torment, we're going to be even bigger experts in Hellraiser than we are now.
Yeah, you know what? I feel kind of bad because we have a little section on the side of our website about upcoming releases. And this Nightbreed CD thing just sort of snuck up on us, and the Phantasmagoria book snuck up on us, and we didn't get a chance to really put those on there as something to look forward to. Yeah.
All right. Going to be working on some new Patreon posts in the weekend, so we might be reading soon the history of how Ryan and I got together and the history of how our podcast got started.
Oh, that would be fun. Yeah,
it goes back a while. Yeah, back when you were Emmett the Crab and you had joined the Time Winds Forum.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, and my old podcast that I had, the video podcast, because video podcast iPods had just come out, was called Ask Emmett the Crab, who was a puppet. I just watched a bunch of YouTube videos on how to make puppets that are, like Muppets. And so I made a bunch of them.
Yeah, and Jennifer made one too. Right?
Yeah, she had
one. Butterfly.
Yeah, that was Fritz the Butterfly. Yeah, and the real problem we had, and the thing that caused us to stop, was that we had a baby and we couldn't have. It was physically impossible for us to keep making those episodes because somebody always had to be holding the baby.
Oh, yeah.
So, we'd had one person on the camera, or, and you have one arm in the puppet and one arm, holding the rod for the arm, and then another arm that's pushing the record on the microphone. And
well, now Joel's grown up, so now you could probably...
We could go back.
If you wanted to, you could go back and do a full feature film about Emmett the Crab.
Yeah, I could force Joel to help me with it. Yeah. Although Emmett the Crab is not in good shape. That
would be a great skill to learn, I guess.
Those puppets are in kind of rough shape.
One interesting thing, I'm not sure if this should be in the podcast, but we'll talk about it anyway. It's like, you remember that guy we met in Texas? He was dressed as the Chatterbeast?
Yes.
Kyle Hart?
Yeah, Kyle Hart.
He's actually visiting Ed today, and they're going to be casting a mask in latex of a Cenobite.
Oh, so that's totally not what I thought you were going to talk about, because he's been sending me messages that he's making a round puzzle box like the one in Hellraiser 6.
Yes, I've been keeping abreast of that stuff too. But today he's in Hayward visiting Ed.
Really?
And I might end up making a post about that if they take pictures of what they're doing. So
unless Ed puts it on his YouTube channel.
No, I think we were talking about that the other day, and I think they're just going to be doing that, molding a latex mask. And he said if he can get any pictures, that he'll send them to us. And I said, yeah, I'd love to cover that. So we'll see how that goes.
All right.
It's supposed to be awesome. A Cenobite from Hellraiser 3.
Oh. Well, good luck to them then. Yeah.
Yeah.
I hope that turns out well. Yeah. That sounds cool. All right. I think we've gotten through it. So we're probably 2 hours in, maybe a little bit less after editing and everything. But yeah, I think this was a good experiment, being able to cover these two topics in one. And I think it'll get easier because as we go down the discs, I think there's fewer and fewer special features.
Very good.
Yeah. And this podcast, having no beginning, will have no end. Thank you for joining us, and we hope you have subscribed. You can find the Clive Barker podcast wherever you find audio. Show notes for this episode, as well as news and reviews, can be found at our website at www.clivebarkercast.com. The Clive Barker Podcast, or BarkerCast, is an independent editorial podcast and blog that is not affiliated with or under contract by Clive Barker or Seraphim Inc. This is a labor of love by the fans for the fans. You can chat with us on our Facebook BarkerCast listeners group, our Facebook page, Twitter, or our Discord server. The best way to support us is to buy our book, The BarkerCast Interviews, Occupy Midian, available in hardcover on Amazon and ebook on Amazon and Apple Books. Fundraiser 10 is all about Patreon this year. Become a patron to get access to exclusive stuff, pick an episode topic, and maybe even get cool stuff in the mail. You can also buy a t-shirt on our TeePublic store. Go to tpublic.com and search for BarkerCast. Leave a message for us using the SpeakPipe link on our blog. Opening and ending music generously provided by Ray Norrish.
Thanks for listening.